Have you ever felt lost, searching for someone to guide you through life's twists and turns? Maybe you've looked up to successful people, thinking if you just follow their footsteps, you'll find your way. But what if I told you that the best guide for your life is already inside you? That's right, it's you. The power to shape your destiny lies within, waiting to be unleashed. This isn't just some feel-good idea. It's a profound truth that can change everything about how you live your life. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, that sounds a bit scary. How can I trust myself when there's so much I don't know? And you're right to feel that way. Trusting yourself is a big deal. It's not always easy. But here's the thing. If we always follow others, we might miss out on our own unique path. We might end up living someone else's life instead of our own. And that would be a real shame, wouldn't it? Imagine waking up one day, years from now, and realizing you've been living a life that doesn't really feel like yours. A life where you've achieved things that others told you were important, but deep down, they don't make you happy. That's what's at stake here. When we trust ourselves, we open the door to a life that's truly ours. A life filled with purpose, meaning, and joy. A life where we make choices that align with our deepest values and desires. But it's not just about avoiding regret. Trusting yourself is also about unlocking your full potential. Think about it. When you trust yourself, you're more likely to take risks, to try new things, to push your boundaries. You become more creative, more resilient, more alive. You start to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to shape your world instead of just reacting to it. Now, I'm not the first person to talk about the importance of trusting yourself. In fact, this idea goes way back. One of the most famous thinkers to champion this idea was a German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche. Don't worry if you've never heard of him. What matters is his message. Nietzsche lived in the 19th century, but his ideas are still super relevant today. He was a bit of a rebel in the world of philosophy. While many thinkers of his time were all about finding universal truths that apply to everyone, Nietzsche said, hold on a minute. We're all unique. We all have our own path to follow. One of Nietzsche's big ideas was that we should become who we are. Sounds simple, right? But it's actually pretty deep. He wasn't talking about just accepting yourself as you are right now. He was saying that each of us has the potential to become something great, something unique. But to do that, we need to trust ourselves and our own journey. Nietzsche believed that following others blindly was a big mistake. He thought that when we just copy what others do or believe what others tell us without questioning, we lose touch with our true selves. We become like sheep in a herd, all moving in the same direction without really knowing why. Instead, Nietzsche encouraged people to think for themselves, to question everything, and to forge their own path in life. He believed that this was the way to live a truly authentic and fulfilling life. It's not about being selfish or ignoring others completely. It's about having the courage to listen to your own inner voice and follow where it leads. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but it's easier said than done. And you're absolutely right. Trusting yourself and following your own path isn't always easy. It can be scary. It can be uncomfortable. Sometimes it might feel like you're walking in the dark without a flashlight. But Nietzsche would say that this discomfort, this uncertainty, is actually a good thing. It's a sign that you're growing, that you're becoming who you're meant to be. Let's talk about why we often end up following others instead of trusting ourselves. It's totally normal, by the way. We humans are social creatures. We're wired to look to others for guidance and approval. From the time we're little kids, we learn by watching and copying others. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, they all shape how we think and act. And in many ways, this is a good thing. It helps us learn, grow, and get along with others. But there's a flip side to this. Sometimes we can get so used to following others that we forget how to listen to ourselves. We start to doubt our own thoughts and feelings. We might think, well, everyone else is doing it this way, so it must be right. This can show up in all sorts of ways in our lives. Maybe you chose your career because your parents thought it was a good idea, not because it's what you really want to do. Or perhaps you hang out with certain people because they're considered cool, even though you don't really enjoy their company. You might even hold certain beliefs or opinions simply because that's what most people around you think. Following others like this can feel safe. It's comfortable. You don't have to make tough decisions. You don't have to take risks. You can just go with the flow. But here's the problem. When we always follow others, we miss out on so much. First of all, we miss out on discovering who we really are. Each of us is unique with our own talents, passions, and purpose. But if we're always looking to others for direction, we might never uncover these things about ourselves. It's like having a treasure buried inside you, but never taking the time to dig it up. Secondly, we miss out on the joy of creating our own path. There's something really special about making your own choices and seeing where they lead you. Sure, you might make some mistakes along the way, but those mistakes are valuable too. They're how we learn and grow. Another big downside of always following others is that it can lead to a lot of unhappiness. Think about it. If you're living your life based on what others expect of you, rather than what you truly want, how fulfilled can you really be? You might achieve things that look good on paper, but deep down, you feel empty or unfulfilled. And here's something else to consider. When we always follow others, we limit our potential. We box ourselves in. We might have amazing ideas or talents that never see the light of day because we're too busy trying to fit in or meet others' expectations. There's also the risk of losing touch with our own values and beliefs. When we constantly look to others for guidance, we might end up compromising on things that are really important to us. We might find ourselves doing things that don't sit right with us, simply because that's what everyone does. Now, I'm not saying we should never listen to others or seek advice. That would be going too far in the other direction. The wisdom and experience of others can be incredibly valuable. But there's a big difference between learning from others and blindly following them. The key is to find a balance. To learn from others, but also to trust your own instincts and judgment. To be open to advice, but to make your own decisions. To be part of a community, but to also honor your individuality. Remember, no one else has lived your life. No one else has had your exact experiences, your unique combination of strengths and weaknesses, your particular dreams and fears. So while others can offer guidance, they can't tell you exactly what's right for you. That's something only you can figure out. And that brings us to the power of self-trust. When we learn to trust ourselves, we open up a whole new world of possibilities. We become the authors of our own lives, rather than just characters in someone else's story. So, what exactly do we mean by self-trust? It's not about being overconfident or thinking you're always right. Self-trust is more like having a strong, positive relationship with yourself. It's about believing in your own abilities, valuing your own thoughts and feelings, and having faith that you can handle whatever life throws your way. When you trust yourself, you're saying, I believe in me. I trust my judgment. I know that even if I make mistakes, I can learn from them and move forward. It's like having your own back, no matter what. Now, the benefits of self-trust are huge. First off, it gives you a sense of inner peace and confidence. When you trust yourself, you're not constantly second-guessing every decision or worrying about what others think. You have a kind of inner compass that guides you, and that feels really good. Self-trust also helps you make better decisions. When you're not always looking to others for answers, you start to tune into your own wisdom. You become more aware of what feels right for you, what aligns with your values and goals. This doesn't mean you'll always make perfect choices, but your decisions will be more authentic and true to who you are. Another big benefit of self-trust is that it helps you be more resilient. Life isn't always easy. We all face setbacks and challenges. But when you trust yourself, you're more likely to bounce back from these tough times. You have confidence that you can handle difficulties and learn from them. Self-trust also opens you up to new experiences and opportunities. When you believe in yourself, you're more likely to take positive risks. Maybe you'll apply for that job you've always wanted, even if it feels like a stretch. Or perhaps you'll start that creative project you've been dreaming about. Self-trust gives you the courage to step out of your comfort zone and grow. It's also worth noting that self-trust can improve your relationships with others. When you trust yourself, you're less likely to seek constant approval from others or to stay in situations that aren't good for you. You can set healthy boundaries and form more authentic connections with people. But here's something really cool about self-trust. It can actually help you tap into your own unique potential. Each of us has gifts and talents that are uniquely ours. But sometimes we don't recognize or value these gifts because we're too busy trying to be like everyone else. When you trust yourself, you start to uncover and appreciate your own special qualities. Think about some of the most inspiring people in history. People who made great discoveries, created amazing art, or brought about positive change in the world. These weren't people who just followed the crowd. They were people who trusted their own ideas and instincts, even when others doubted them. Now, you might be thinking, that's all great, but how do I actually build this self-trust? And that's a great question. Building self-trust is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but there are things you can do to nurture it. One way to start is by keeping promises to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Even small things matter. If you decide you're going to go for a walk every morning, stick to it. This shows you that you can rely on yourself. Another important step is learning to listen to your own feelings and intuition. We often have a gut feeling about things, but we ignore it because it doesn't seem logical or because it goes against what others are saying. Start paying attention to these feelings. They're often trying to tell you something important. Practicing self-compassion is also key to building self-trust. This means treating yourself with kindness, especially when you make mistakes. Instead of beating yourself up when things go wrong, try to be understanding and supportive, just as you would with a good friend. It's also helpful to remind yourself of past successes. Think about times when you've overcome challenges or achieved something you're proud of. This can boost your confidence in your own abilities. Remember, building self-trust is a journey. There will be ups and downs. Sometimes you might feel really confident, and other times you might doubt yourself. That's normal. The important thing is to keep working at it, to keep believing in yourself and your own path. As you start to trust yourself more, you might notice some changes in your life. You might feel more peaceful, more confident. You might find yourself making choices that feel more you. You might even inspire others around you to trust themselves more. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about self-trust is that it allows you to live a life that's truly yours. Not a life based on others' expectations or society's rules, but a life that reflects your own values, passions, and dreams. And isn't that what we all want, deep down? To live a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and true to who we really are? So, as we move forward in this journey of self-trust, remember what Nietzsche said about becoming who you are. Trust yourself. Listen to your inner voice. Have the courage to follow your own path. It might not always be easy, but it's the surest way to a life that's rich, fulfilling, and uniquely yours. When we talk about trusting ourselves, it's important to address the elephant in the room: fear and doubt. These are natural human emotions, and they often show up when we're trying to rely on our own judgment. It's like there's a little voice in our head saying, "Are you sure about this? What if you're wrong? Maybe you should just play it safe and do what everyone else is doing." These feelings of fear and doubt can be pretty powerful. They might make you hesitate when you're about to make a decision. They might cause you to second-guess yourself, even when you know, deep down, what you want to do. Sometimes, they might even paralyze you, making it hard to take any action at all. But here's the thing. Having fears and doubts doesn't mean you can't trust yourself. In fact, recognizing and working through these feelings is a big part of building self-trust. It's not about never feeling afraid or uncertain. It's about learning to move forward despite these feelings. One common fear that comes up when we talk about trusting ourselves is the fear of making mistakes. We might think, what if I trust my judgment and things go wrong? This fear can be especially strong if we've made mistakes in the past that had tough consequences. But let's think about this for a moment. Is it really possible to go through life without ever making a mistake? Of course not. Mistakes are a natural part of being human. They're how we learn and grow. In fact, Some of the most valuable lessons in life come from the times when things don't go as planned. Another common fear is the fear of disapproval from others. We might worry, what if I follow my own path and other people don't like it? This fear is understandable. As humans, we're wired to want to belong and be accepted by others. But constantly seeking approval from others can lead us away from our true selves. Doubt often shows up as a lack of confidence in our own abilities. We might think, who am I to make this decision? I don't have enough experience/knowledge/skill. This kind of self-doubt can hold us back from trying new things or taking on challenges that could help us grow. So, how do we overcome these fears and doubts? First, it's important to recognize that they're normal. Having fears and doubts doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you're human. One helpful approach is to question your fears and doubts. When that anxious thought pops up, ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have for and against this thought? Often, we'll find that our fears are based more on imagination than reality. It can also be helpful to reframe how we think about mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, try to view them as learning opportunities. Every mistake is a chance to gain new knowledge and improve. Practicing self-compassion is another powerful tool. This means treating yourself with kindness and understanding, especially when things are tough. Instead of beating yourself up when you're feeling doubtful, try talking to yourself like you would to a good friend. Gradually pushing yourself out of your comfort zone can also help build confidence and reduce fear. Start with small steps. Each time you face a fear and come out okay on the other side, you build evidence that you can trust yourself. Remember, building self-trust is a process. It's okay to take it slow. You don't have to conquer all your fears and doubts overnight. The important thing is to keep moving forward one step at a time. Now that we've talked about overcoming fear and doubt, let's dive into what it really means to find your own path in life. This idea is at the heart of trusting yourself. It's about discovering who you truly are and living in a way that's authentic to you. Finding your own path doesn't mean you have to do everything differently from everyone else. It's not about being unique for the sake of being unique. Instead, it's about making choices that align with your values, passions, and goals, even if those choices are different from what others expect of you. One of the most important aspects of finding your own path is getting to know yourself. This might sound funny. After all, who knows you better than you, right? But the truth is, many of us go through life without really taking the time to understand our own thoughts, feelings, and desires. Start by asking yourself some big questions. What really matters to you? What makes you feel alive and excited? What kind of person do you want to be? These aren't always easy questions to answer, and your answers might change over time. That's okay. The important thing is to keep checking in with yourself. Another key part of finding your own path is learning to trust your own experiences. Each of us has a unique set of experiences that shape how we see the world. These experiences are valuable. They've taught you things that no one else knows in quite the same way. For example, maybe you've gone through a tough time and come out stronger on the other side. That experience has given you wisdom that you can't get from a book or from someone else's advice. Trust that wisdom. Let it guide you. It's also important to embrace your own journey, including the parts that might seem messy or imperfect. Life isn't a straight line from point A to point B. It's full of twists and turns, ups and downs. Your path might not look like anyone else's, and that's okay. In fact, that's what makes it beautiful and uniquely yours. Remember, finding your own path doesn't mean you have to figure everything out on your own. It's okay to seek advice and learn from others. The key is to take that input and filter it through your own values and goals, rather than just accepting it blindly. One practical way to start finding your own path is to pay attention to what feels right to you. When you're making a decision, don't just think about what looks good on paper or what others might approve of. Ask yourself, does this feel true to who I am? It can also be helpful to experiment and try new things. You might not always know what you want or what you're good at until you give it a try. Be open to new experiences. They might lead you in directions you never expected. As you start to walk your own path, you might face some challenges. You might encounter people who don't understand your choices. You might have moments of doubt. That's all normal. Remember, the path less traveled isn't always the easiest, but it can be the most rewarding. Now, as we talk about trusting yourself and finding your own path, you might be wondering, does this mean I should never listen to anyone else? And that's a great question. The answer is no. Trusting yourself doesn't mean ignoring everyone else. It's all about finding a balance. Think of it like this. Trusting yourself is about being the captain of your own ship. You're the one steering and deciding where to go. But that doesn't mean you can't look at maps, listen to weather reports, or ask for advice from experienced sailors. The key is that you're the one making the final decisions. Learning from others is incredibly valuable. Other people have experiences and knowledge that we don't have. They can offer different perspectives that we might not have considered. Sometimes they can see things about us that we can't see ourselves. So how do we balance trusting ourselves with learning from others? First, it's important to be selective about whose advice we take. Not all advice is created equal. Some people might give advice based on their own fears or limitations. Others might have wisdom that's really worth listening to. When someone gives you advice, take a moment to consider where it's coming from. Does this person have experience in this area? Do they understand your situation and your goals? Do their values align with yours? These questions can help you decide how much weight to give their advice. It's also helpful to remember that you can listen to advice without necessarily following it. Sometimes, hearing someone else's perspective can help clarify your own thoughts, even if you end up making a different choice. Another important aspect of balancing self-trust with learning from others is to stay true to your own values and goals. It's okay to be inspired by others, but be careful not to lose sight of what's important to you. If you find yourself constantly changing direction based on the latest advice you've heard, it might be a sign that you need to reconnect with your own inner guidance. Remember, even experts can be wrong sometimes. Just because someone is successful or has a lot of knowledge doesn't mean their advice is always right for you. Trust your own judgment. If something doesn't feel right, even if it comes from someone you respect, it's okay to question it or decide it's not for you. One helpful approach is to treat advice like clothes shopping. When you're shopping for clothes, you might try on lots of different things. Some things look great on the hanger, but don't fit quite right when you put them on. Others might surprise you by looking better than you expected. In the end, you choose what fits you best and leaves you feeling comfortable and confident. Similarly, when you're considering advice or learning from others, try things on mentally. See how they fit with your own experiences, values, and goals. Keep what works for you and leave the rest. It's also worth noting that as you develop more self-trust, you'll likely become better at learning from others. When you're secure in your own judgment, you can be more open to different ideas without feeling threatened by them. You can take what's useful and leave what's not, without feeling pressured to accept everything. Lastly, remember that it's okay to change your mind. If you make a decision based on your own judgment and later realize it wasn't the best choice, that's not a failure of self-trust. It's a normal part of learning and growing. The important thing is to reflect on the experience and use it to inform your future decisions. Balancing self-trust with learning from others is an ongoing process. It's about being open to input while staying connected to your own inner wisdom. As you practice this balance, you'll likely find that your decisions become more nuanced and aligned with who you truly are. Now that we've explored the importance of self-trust and how to balance it with learning from others, let's dive into some practical steps you can take to build and strengthen your self-trust. Remember, this is a journey, and like any journey, it starts with small steps. First, let's talk about the power of keeping promises to yourself. This might seem simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Start by making small commitments to yourself and then following through. Maybe you decide to go for a 10-minute walk every day or to read for 15 minutes before bed. Whatever it is, make sure it's something you can realistically do. Then, do it consistently. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, you're sending a message that you can rely on yourself. You're building trust, just like you would with a friend. Another important step is learning to listen to your intuition. We all have that inner voice, that gut feeling that tries to guide us. But often, we ignore it because it doesn't seem logical or because it goes against what others are saying. Start paying attention to this inner voice. When you have a decision to make, take a moment to check in with your gut feeling. What is it telling you? Over time, you'll likely find that your intuition is a powerful guide. Practicing self-compassion is also crucial in building self-trust. This means treating yourself with kindness, especially when things don't go as planned. We often have a tendency to be our own harshest critics. But imagine if you treated a good friend the way you treat yourself when you make a mistake. You probably wouldn't have that friend for long. Start talking to yourself like you would to a friend, with understanding, patience, and encouragement. Another practical step is to reflect on your past successes. Take some time to think about challenges you've overcome or goals you've achieved. Write them down if it helps. This isn't about bragging. It's about reminding yourself of your capabilities. When you're facing a new challenge and doubt starts to creep in, look back at this list. It can be a powerful reminder that you're capable of more than you might think in the moment. Learning to set boundaries is also an important part of trusting yourself. This means knowing what's okay and not okay for you, and being able to communicate that to others. When you set and maintain healthy boundaries, you're showing yourself and others that you trust your own judgment about what's best for you. Embracing your mistakes is another key step. This doesn't mean trying to make mistakes, of course. But when you do make them, and we all do, try to approach them with curiosity rather than criticism. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Each mistake is an opportunity to gain knowledge and grow stronger. Regularly checking in with yourself is also crucial. Set aside some time each day or week to reflect on how you're feeling, what's working well in your life, and what you might want to change. This practice helps you stay connected with your true self and your own needs and desires. Lastly, don't be afraid to take calculated risks. Starting small, step out of your comfort zone regularly. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you usually stay quiet, or trying a new hobby you've always been curious about. Each time you take a risk and survive, even if things don't go perfectly, you build evidence that you can trust yourself to handle new situations. Remember, building self-trust is a process. It won't happen overnight, and there might be setbacks along the way. That's okay. The important thing is to keep moving forward one step at a time. As we come to the end of our exploration of self-trust, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken. We started by talking about the courage it takes to trust yourself, inspired by the bold thinking of Friedrich Nietzsche. We discussed the problems that can arise when we always follow others, and the incredible power that comes from trusting our own judgment. We faced the fears and doubts that often come up when we try to rely on ourselves, and we explored what it means to find our own unique path in life. We talked about how to balance trusting ourselves with learning from others, and we looked at practical steps we can take to build and strengthen our self-trust. Throughout all of this, one thing has become clear. Trusting yourself is not just a nice idea. It's a vital skill for living a fulfilling and authentic life. When you trust yourself, you open the door to a world of possibilities. You become more resilient in the face of challenges, more confident in your decisions, and more in tune with your true self. But perhaps most importantly, trusting yourself allows you to live a life that's truly yours. Not a life based on others' expectations or society's rules, but a life that reflects your own values, passions, and dreams. It's about becoming, as Nietzsche said, who you truly are. Remember, this journey of self-trust is not about reaching a final destination. It's an ongoing process of growth and self-discovery. There will be ups and downs along the way. There will be times when trusting yourself feels easy and times when it feels incredibly difficult. That's all part of the journey. The key is to keep moving forward, to keep believing in yourself even when it's hard. Each time you listen to your inner voice, each time you honor your own judgment, you're building a stronger foundation of self-trust. As you go forward from here, I encourage you to be patient and kind with yourself. Building self-trust takes time. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it might seem. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. While the path you walk is uniquely yours, many others are on their own journeys of self-trust too. Trust yourself. Listen to your inner wisdom. Have the courage to follow your own path. It might not always be easy, but it's the surest way to a life that's rich, fulfilling, and true to who you really are. Your unique journey is waiting for you. Embrace it with open arms and an open heart. The world needs your authentic self, your unique gifts, and your special light. Trust yourself to shine brightly.